Yuji has just slammed Sukuna with a black flash and awakened his true inner potential, and he is about to push Sukuna further than anyone else has pushed him before. And we know that Sukuna is holding back a tremendous amount because it has been said by multiple characters that yes, Sukuna is not going all out. He has not been using his full power this entire time while he's fighting Gojo, Kashimo, Higuruma, Yuta, Maki. He has been holding back a frightening amount. But as Yuji pushes Sukuna and awakens his true power, it's now important to discuss just what exactly is Sukuna holding back. So let's get right into this. Be sure to leave a like on the video, it helps out a lot, thank you. And of course, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe for a ton of consistent and quality JJK content just like this. Less than 10% of people who actually watch my videos are subscribed, so if you love JJK, I assure you, you won't regret subscribing. And of course, thank you to the special grade members of the channel, it is much appreciated. Now there's 4 very different points we need to talk about in this video. And the first being, is Sukuna really holding back? The answer is yes. It has been said multiple times by multiple characters, as you can see on the screen. It has been said twice by Gojo that Sukuna is holding back. It has been said by Kusakabe, and it's been clearly stated by Uraume that Sukuna is still not using his full power. The 2 Gojo lines are interesting because at the time we just assumed that Gojo was referring to Sukuna's transformation because that's what we saw right after Gojo died. But here's the thing though, Gojo would have no idea about Sukuna's transformation, yet he knew that Sukuna was holding something back. It's more likely that Gojo, with his 6 eyes, saw what Sukuna's true curse technique is, because do remember, Gojo's 6 eyes can see people's real curse techniques. We saw this during Hidden Inventory, and more importantly, we saw this very recently with Miguel, where Gojo straight up says everything about Miguel's curse technique in extreme depth, and he says he can do this thanks to his special eyes. So that's how Gojo knew that Sukuna was holding back. With his 6 eyes, he probably saw what Sukuna's true curse technique is, and after dying, he realized he didn't even need to use it to defeat Gojo. So that's why it's more likely that Gojo's referring to Sukuna's curse technique as what Sukuna's probably holding back and not his transformation, because as far as we're aware, there's no reason why Gojo would be aware of the transformation other than perhaps Angel telling Gojo about incarnations and explaining that, but that is unlikely because for some reason there was a lot of important information withheld from Gojo, such as Sukuna and Kenjaku having open domains. That's 1,000 times more important than even the incarnation stuff, so if they're not telling Gojo about that, then for whatever reason over the past month and a half, they probably didn't tell him about a lot of things. But an even bigger reason as to why Gojo's lines are not referring to his transformation is because these lines are the exact same lines that Uraume and Kusakabe said after Sukuna had transformed. The fact that the exact same statements are still being made after his transformation, narratively that shows us that whatever Gojo is referring to still has yet to appear, because those same lines are still being said even by Uraume right now. So from a writing point of view, that's why what Gojo said can't have been the transformation, even though I do believe the transformation is something he was holding back, but it's very likely just one of many things. Now, the second thing I need to talk about before I talk about what he's holding back exactly is how strong is Sukuna at his full power, which is crazy to say. We have still never seen Sukuna use his full power. From chapter 0 until now, we have not seen it, except we did get a glimpse of it during the Kashimo fight when the narrator was breaking it down. So let me read this for you quickly. It was in this form, wielding the pair of cursed tools, Kamotoki and Hiten, that Sukuna annihilated the elite celestial squad and 5 void generals who served under the Fujiwara Hokkei branch, and repelled the forces of the Abe clan's Dasichin squad, including Angel and remnants of the Sugawara clan. Now I'll break this down in a lot of depth for you here because I know that just sounds like empty stats and just random people that we've never heard of, but there is a lot of information to take away from this that I'll explain to you now. Mind you, there's going to be a lot of assumptions and speculations on my part given the lack of almost any information at all, so these are just my interpretations so far, and also shout out to Wikipedia because I am no expert on Japanese history and that carried me a lot here. The first is that the Heian level just generally was on an entire different level compared to the modern day. We had people not even high up in the food chain like Uro and Uraume just being servants or high level soldiers. So an elite Heian sorcerer like these guys are monsters who can use domain expansion and easily rip apart someone with infinite cursed energy like Jackpot Akari. The Sun and Moon 5 empty generals are powerful too, Uro just being one of the many members, a captain of only the Sun and Moon squad, and these 2 squads were filled with elite Heian sorcerers. Though keep in mind, Yorozu did defeat the 5 empty generals, which I don't use to downplay them since Yorozu is so unbelievably powerful. She's in my personal top 5, which a lot of you may disagree with, but that's a completely different topic, but some people do use that to downplay the 5 empty generals, also known as the 5 void generals. It's important to note that Angel was a part of the jumping too, as well as Angel's squad, the Dasichin squad, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, but I'm trying my best. Mind you, this isn't Hana, but the Angel themselves with the full Heian experience and level of sorcery. So Sukuna had to deal with this, what you're seeing on the screen the entire time, far greater level than what Hana was able to pull off from a Heian monster such as the Angel. The Angel seems to be included under the Abe clan, which makes sense since the Abe clan had massive power during the Heian era, and again, shout out Wikipedia for telling me all this. It's purely speculation based on real history, but this named Abe clan Dasichin squad was likely monstrous, at the bare minimum at least Heian elite level. And last but not least, the remnants of the Sugawara clan. And and this one's hard to gauge how powerful the sorcerers really were. The Sugawara clan were extremely powerful during the Heian era, but these are just the remnants. For all we know, they could be average Heian level or elite Heian level sorcerers. We don't know the specifics of this one. What this all means is that Sukuna, at the bare minimum, was fighting at least 15 to 20 plus Heian elite sorcerers, including Angel and Uro. And Sukuna could have been fighting anywhere between 20 and 50 sorcerers at one time. It's really hard to tell. It could be less, but it could even be more. And he still came out on top. This is Ryomen Sukuna's true power, and the fact that he was able to do that against so many elite Heian sorcerers, that fight alone, just in terms of the stats and how many people were fighting, makes the current Sukuna jumping look like an utter joke. And it makes sense why Urume is disappointed by everyone how they haven't been able to push Sukuna, because Urume is probably referring to this time when Sukuna was likely forced to use everything he had, because the narrator specifically said that Sukuna did use both of his curse tools in the fight, and in the actual mural that we see, we have a lot of people jumping him all at the same time. The point is, Sukuna's full power will be a beast that we have never seen before, and it should be the strongest thing in the entire series, bar none. And now it's time to talk about Sukuna's abilities and what his full power will entail. Adam Zephyr, channel member, says, I think Yuji's awakening is him unlocking Sukuna's abilities. There was that weird emphasis on the cut on Sukuna's finger in 216, so maybe Yuji subconsciously used a weak dismantle against Sukuna when he had those same swirly eyes in 214. Except now Yuji's landed a black flash, fully unlocking the ability similar to how Mahito's black flash revealed his true soul shape. Then he'll use them against Sukuna, causing Sukuna to use open, the black box, or whatever other abilities like his domain expansion. Now this I do agree on. I made a video very recently on it explaining exactly what Yuji's awakening is and how we've already seen him awaken before, but that's the important part. Like Adam is saying, I also believe that Yuji will push Sukuna to use his full power. But what exactly is Sukuna's full power? So the first and most obvious answer is that it will be his open, his fuga, his flames. Because remember, we saw him use the flames twice in Shibuya, and this is something that Kusakabe specifically says, how it's weird and even creepy how Sukuna still hasn't used the flames like he did in Shibuya. He was thinking maybe there's binding vows or conditions attached to it, but the thing is that when we see him use it during Shibuya, it didn't seem like there were any conditions attached to it at all. As he uses it against Jogo, just no issues at all, he just summons it, and even while fighting Mahoraga, he summons it during a domain. People theorize that this may be Yuji's technique that he summoned and he opened Yuji's black box, which could be a possibility, but there was art of Sukuna from an official exhibition or something along those lines where it did show Sukuna in his Heian form using fire, kind of implying that this is an ability Sukuna had during the Heian era. And also, it's the fact that Sukuna said, I won't cheat by revealing my curse technique. I still believe that maybe this is something that Yuji could get because the technique would be engraved on his brain, but I do believe that this is a Sukuna original more likely than not, and this is the important part. If Sukuna was able to summon flames, then what else could he summon of his open? Because there are a ton of theories, such as the open being a storage technique, and that's what his true curse technique is. Because in GEGE's previous manga called Number 9, the main character had the exact same ability as Sukuna, where he says open in the exact same wording, and what that does is it opens a storage of a slew of weapons that the main character of that manga can use. Very similar to Sukuna, who summoned a fire arrow, which is a weapon. So for all we know, he could have an electric sword, a poison shield, maybe a water spear, and the key thing is that this open may have his He 10. It may be storing it and Sukuna saving it because he just doesn't need it. And what is Sukuna's He 10? Because it's his other weapon and we do know some information on it, because it seems to be a direct reference to the Trishula, just as how the Kamutoki was a direct reference to the Vajra, and we were able to correctly predict the lightning abilities of the Kamutoki years before we even saw it be used, simply because it's the exact same as the Vajra. So I'm going to read this off the wiki, and again, the wiki is heavy carrying me this video. The Trishula is a trident, a divine symbol, commonly used as one of the principal symbols in Hinduism. It is most commonly associated with the deity Shiva, and this is very important because we saw Shiva's son, the god Ganesha, is in JJK. The cursed spirit Ganesha was a cursed spirit that Kenjaku had under his control. Now obviously that definitely wasn't the actual god Ganesha, because if it were, then Kenjaku would have been able to solo the entire verse. What was likely going on is that the fear that people have for deities creates a cursed spirit of that deity. We saw this when Naname and Haibara died to a deity cursed spirit, but the point being is that this weapon, at least the Trishula which is based off of, is incredibly powerful. The 3 points of the weapon have meanings to them, with each of them being creation, preservation, and destruction, past, present, and future. And I also read somewhere that it can extend infinitely, so this weapon could have 3 different abilities on each of its staffs if GEGE chooses. So if the Kamutoki had lightning, the He 10 could have 3 different techniques on each tip, which would be insane. And if Sukuna has such a powerful ability, then why hasn't he summoned it? Well, one reason why he hasn't used it is simply because he's not going all out and he hasn't had the need to. We know that against Gojo, he for whatever reason chose to not use any of his cursed tools, as he could have brought the Kamutoki to begin with, but only chose to use that after Gojo was defeated. And we also know that ever since Gojo was defeated, he has not been using his full power ever since, so if he does have the Heat 10, maybe he was able to acquire it during the time skip because a month and a half did pass. The simple answer is that he just hasn't gone all out, so he hasn't found the need to use it in combat, which is perfectly in line of Gojo, Kusakabe, and Uraume especially all saying that Sukuna is not using his full power and is not going all out. So if Yuji does push Sukuna to go all out, then we finally may get to see the Heat 10, which would be awesome. I hope we do see that. And this goes along the lines of what China Doll said. I don't think we've actually seen him go all out because we haven't seen anything in his real kit. GEGE needs to stop teasing us and give us a good show of whatever he can do, and I completely agree with this. The only thing that we got to see was the Kamutoki, and even that was taken away before it could even be used. The only person he used that against was Kashimo, who has an immunity to lightning, so I could not agree more with China Doll here. And Mr. 60 says, I hope he will use Open because I think he underestimated Yuji's ability to decrease his output. I don't even know if he can heal that output unlike when it dulled during the Gojo fight. I think Yuji will go toe to toe with him next chapter and Sukuna may reveal his technique in 258. It seems like the only thing that can restore Sukuna's output is a Black Flash, but Choso even says Yuji's regular hits are able to decrease it to a point of Sukuna hitting a Black Flash not even mattering. Yuji really counters him hard, so Sukuna will need to go all out right now and try and create some distance with him, and I do agree with Mr. 60, but it may be a cliffhanger for 258 as he's about to use his full power, and 259 who will really get a deep dive on it, and it may take more than just one chapter. This could be something that could take 2 to 3 chapters, whereas Yuji is kicking Sukuna's ass for 2 to 3 chapters, but then Sukuna goes all out and then Sukuna bodies Yuji after that point forward, which I do touch upon in this video. And the last comment is from Denji, where he says Yuji was a potential man all along, and I think that's a good place to end this video. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like, it helps out a ton, thank you. And of course, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe for a ton of consistent and quality JJK content just like this. Like I said in the intro, less than 10% of people who watch my videos are subscribed, so if you love JJK, I assure you, you won't regret subscribing. And of course, thank you to all the channel members as well, it is always much appreciated. That's all from me, have a great day and take care.